Blake, who would your wife like to trade you in for?
Toby, me and my wife are looking for a rich husband.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who desperately wished he believed in polygamy so I could be a gold digger like my deceased aunt Lucretia, and I'm here with my co-host who got his wife to marry him because he's rich with lunch money, Toby Walters.
I don't even know where to start with this one. Oh,
my dead
goodness.
Aunt Lucretia literally gold digged multiple men out of millions of dollars.
Wow.
Millions.
To be fair to my wife, I had no money when we got married. She had way more money than I did, so I was the gold digger.
How many people, Toby, do you want me to confess have asked me this? And I say, he wasn't always independently wealthy. She married him when he was a poor artist.
Yes, 100%. Her parents told her not to. Her parents were like, he wants to be a musician? He wants to be a worship leader? No. You need to marry a doctor, a lawyer, somebody with a future.
And the problem is your kids now know this. So if you tell them not to marry someone...
It's true. I know. It's tricky. So,
there's no way to transition from my dead Aunt Lucretia
exactly.
who is
So we're going to have to slightly transition. This could feel like an awkward transition because I don't even know where to go with Blake's family background. But we're talking integrators for a moment, and we'll get back to our opening line. But there are a wealth of...
millions.
A wealth of integrators out there. I mean, there might be millions of integrators out there. I mean, if you just talk about one person in...
Keep talking. I'll ask ChatGPT.
Okay. So see what ChatTBY has to say about that. But there are a lot of good ones. And for the most part, they play nice together. They play nice with each other. They don't... speak badly of one another. And I even joked as we were at Infocom, Toger and I, and we're walking around and we saw like 8 different teams of integrators that we all know. And I just so wanted them to all meet out in the parking lot and do an Anchorman style beatdown.
Yes. We need to do the Church Tech Olympics and have some integrators come and then film a video like that for fun.
Yeah. Who gets the trident? Who gets the grenade? You know, who is, was it Ocho?
Oh, Toby, I don't remember their names. I just remember they all fight to the death and Steve Carell kills a guy.
Yes. So one of our integrator friends was telling us the story, and I won't say his name because it's a little bit embarrassing for him.
Okay.
But a while back, we had Nick Kofall from Summit on our podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And so Nick is an amazing guy, and Summit's an awesome integration company. And so Nick is kind of like, and he'll even say, like, he's a pastor at heart. He just wants to shepherd people with his wisdom. He's a very wise guy.
Very wise.
Yeah, which makes me sad because I think we're about the same age, and I'm just an idiot. And then I surround myself with other village idiots, but Nick Kofall has, just golden drops of wisdom that he likes to.
So we all walk up with a bucket to try to get some.
Exactly. So we're talking with our other integrator friend, and he says, oh, I remember that episode when you had Nick Kofall on because you did a social clip of something you said. And my wife saw the social clip when she was flipping through Instagram, and she was so taken with it that she brought the social clip to me and showed it to me and said, this is the most the wisest thing I've ever heard. And our integrator buddy is like, oh, that's great. Apparently Nick Kofall is more handsome than me, more wise than me, and my wife knows it now too.
He didn't say that. You said that. But then his wife went even further, and she wrote out the quote and made it the screensaver on her phone.
Yes.
Which most lovers have their lover as their screensaver. That's how mine is. My lover, my wife, Allison, as my screensaver. So he probably got replaced by Nick's quote.
I know. So, Nick Kofall, way to go on dropping the knowledge. But, our poor buddy is having to compete with Nick Kofall for 2 years now.
Yeah, it's tough in the streets out there.
Yep.
But for someone that doesn't have to compete for his wife's affection, the executive director of Creek Media at Cotton Creek Church and the guitarist for U2, Dave Evans. Dave, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, again, Dave, you pointed out that this reference to the U2's guitarist, a lot of our audience is going to be like, what are they talking about? And Blake especially, this was an infamous moment on the Church Gear podcast. I asked Blake who Bono was. And do you remember what you said in that moment, Blake?
I think I might have asked if it was the Coldplay guy. I don't know. I really don't. I
don't
still
think
don't
he even
know.
knew it was the singer.
I don't know that I know even still.
Yeah. So Bono, for those of you who have not lived under a rock for the last 40 years, is the lead singer of U2. The guitarist for U2 is, lovingly referred to as The Edge. That's what we all know him as. But his real name is Dave Evans. And here he is today, Dave Evans.
A different Dave Evans.
Different Dave Evans.
But this Dave Evans is dynamite.
He is.
That's what his mic says.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, Dave, you've been touted to us. You've been elevated. Your lore has preceded you. Can you give us a snapshot of your background in production and what led to your role today at Cottonwood Creek?
Absolutely. So, my whole career really was spent in the sports broadcast world. So, I have only been here at Cottonwood Creek for about 3 years, and as a professional, meaning as a production professional. I've been a member of Cottonwood Creek Church for 27 years, but the career was basically started out in small market television. Always had the goal to go into the sports side of things, and had that opportunity in 1997 with the Dallas Mavericks. So I was the VP of broadcasting for the Dallas Mavericks for 14 seasons, and then made the move over to Fox Sports and ran the NBA product for 3 of the regional sports networks for Fox Sports Southwest, Oklahoma, and New Orleans. And so at that point, I was dealing with 4 NBA teams. So I just said I went from 1 NBA team to 4. And then basically a lot of things were happening in the industry, especially in the regional sports side of things. And some purchases of the company were happening, and different things with distribution deals were going south. And long story short, I was really kind of getting to that point where I was thinking about, okay, it's maybe time to look for something else or step in a different direction. And about that time, our executive pastor at Cottonwood Creek Church asked me to go have coffee. Now, keep in mind, I was a trustee at the church at the time. So I thought, he's got trustee business he wants to talk to me about. So we went to coffee, and little did I know that he was offering me a job, because during COVID, the media ministry just blew up. We upgraded a lot of equipment and gear, and built a control room, and all sorts of things were happening that were just making the media ministry way bigger. And he said, look, this thing has expanded to the point that we don't really have anyone here who has operated something this large on this level. So I thought he was going to ask me if I knew anybody, and instead he asked me if I would be interested in coming on board. And after much prayer and thought, and realizing kind of where things were going with the current company that I was with, I did decide to retire from sports and make the move over to Cottonwood Creek.
Love it. Blake, you're not an NBA guy. You're strictly NFL?
Strictly NFL.
Can you name 5 NBA players?
Michael Jordan.
1.
LeBron James.
2.
That's all she
That's
wrote.
it.
Kobe.
Kobe Bryant. There you go.
And then the guy that Stephen Curry. Hey, I can tell you who Caitlin Clark is.
Steph.
Did you know the
Steph Curry.
WNBA goes harder than the NBA? They actually, it's basically like rugby. They throw elbows. They fight in the.
They have to entertain you somehow.
Oh, wow, Toby.
Yes.
Wow.
Dave, are the Mavs your team, or did you have another team?
So the Mavs are my team, although before the Mavs even came into existence, I grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And on our small 12-channel cable system there in Santa Fe, we got KCAL, which carried Laker games.
Lakers, yes.
So I grew up a Laker fan, actually. And then the Mavericks came into existence. All of my extended family was from the Dallas area. I ended up adopting the Mavericks, and then ended up going to work for them.
So maybe you were a long-term spy this whole time, that you were the inside
That's exactly
man
right.
that made the Luka trade happen so you could get him over to the Lakers?
It was
I've been outed.
And I grew up a Lakers fan. I am still a huge Lakers fan. So I thank you very much for, letting him, give him his walking papers.
Yeah.
He's speechless.
I know.
I'm speechless on that trade. I really am. I'm like, what in the world is going on here when all of that happened? I mean, I'm really proud of Blake for knowing who Kobe Bryant was, though. So
Yeah. Congratulations, Blake.
I read the news when people die.
Yeah.
Having that player leave your team is tough. Changes are tough when people leave. So just like changes in production. So let's start with technology from where you started, from where you are today. What are some of the biggest challenges in how production is executed now from how it used to be?
Well, man, that is a loaded question because it can be answered in 100 different ways. I'm an old guy. So for me, the biggest shift in my career that I've gone through is really from analog to digital. I mean, everything was analog when I started in the business. I remember doing tape to tape editing on 3/4 inch decks. And that was, in fact, I even did some editing on 1-inch decks where you actually take a pair of scissors and you cut your reel off when you're finished with the edits and everything. But it's come a long way. I remember in my early years at the Mavericks, I used to lament that technology was changing so fast. It was like changing every 5 years. Now it changes seems like every 5 days. So the technology changes have just accelerated as time has gone on. And but really, I think that biggest one, for me was just really going from that analog to digital space. I mentioned editing. I used to edit as a trade. And right at the time that I stopped editing and went into the management executive part of the business is right when nonlinear digital editing was coming on. And so I never did get to that point to where I was an avid editor or edited on Premiere or anything like that. So I've gotten somewhat familiar with the tools, but I'm not an editor anymore. So I just work with editors to create my content.
Yeah. And when you're producing an NBA game, for example, how many cameras are you working with traditionally?
Well, that depends on the size of the broadcast. I mean, I've been involved in some national broadcasts. I've been involved in regional broadcast, obviously. Like for a home Mavericks game on Fox Sports Southwest, we were running around 9 cameras. Basically, that was a pretty good sized camera complement for a regional broadcast. On a regular season NBA game, you're probably upping that to about 13 cameras if you're on ESPN or TNT. And then when you get into the playoffs, each round of the playoffs, it just goes up and up. By the time you get to the finals, you're at 35 cameras. So
dang. And were you producing finals games with the Mavs?
I was not producing the games because at that point, all of the television goes over to the national networks, and I was not an employee of the national networks. I was involved with some of those broadcasts because I was the liaison for the network with the team. So I worked very closely with the technical operations group from ESPN, from TNT, whoever the network it was in doing the playoff game to make sure that they had everything that they needed to do their broadcast. Everything from truck parking to I/O panel connections to camera locations and where they could be, where they couldn't be. If they wanted to be in a location that wasn't a normal camera location, I had to work with our ticket group to try to secure the location. And, just a lot of the logistics of trying to make sure that they had what they needed and everything would work fine. When it was one of our broadcasts, people would say, "Oh, well, did you produce? Did you direct?" No, I hired the producer and I hired the director and I hired the talent.
Yeah.
So I was more at that executive level, but I was very involved in the operational logistics of making sure that everything was there, from the trucks to the cameras to all the facilities and all of the things that you had to do to make sure the broadcast went on the air successfully.
So former life, live sports, current life, church production. Talk to us about the stress level or the stakes. I mean, in live sports, I assume there is a certain level of stress, and you're working with all professionals and contractors. And then in church, there's still plenty of stress to make Sundays happen. But now you're with a very volunteer-driven culture.
Yeah, it's quite a bit different when you're with a volunteer driven culture. And in some ways it's more difficult, in other ways it's not. I like it because I think it's a little bit more fun, because there's camaraderie in the live sports world, even the most competitive parts of the live sports world. You spend more time with these people than you do your own family. So they become your family, and in a lot of ways. And so you're having dinner with them, these some of my lifelong friends are people that I worked alongside with in the sports world. And it's similar in the church world with these volunteers that we developed. We try to get a culture of community to where we're like family also, and so it's a lot of fun. I kind of enjoy working with the volunteers, and really trying to the challenge with volunteers is you try to bring out the best in them, even though that you have no level of control over them, meaning I'm not sending them a paycheck, and so I can't just say, well, you're doing a terrible job, I'm going to fire you.
Look, I do that with Blake all the time, and he's still here.
So it's not very effective.
But it's I don't know. I like the camaraderie that we have, even on both levels. But it's a little bit different on the church side of things. I'm not going to say it's any more or less like a family, but there is certainly an element of like-mindedness. We have every different worldview. You're working with people with all kinds of worldviews in the sports world, whereas in the church world we're kind of all operating from the same page in that category. It's interesting, though, when you compare the two. I was talking to a friend right after I took the job at Cottonwood Creek, and they know both the sports world and the church world. And so when I told them what I was going to be doing, they said, "Oh, you're just going from 60 hours a week to 40 hours a week." So, and I thought that was a good description.
Yeah.
So.
I love it. I'm going to interject a question on behalf of Blake. Do you know Mark Cuban, and also will he run for president so Blake can be happy?
Okay.
Also,
yes,
Toby,
indeed.
We don't talk about politics on this podcast, so now we need to cut this.
Well, I do indeed know Mark Cuban, and worked pretty closely with him for about a decade. And it's interesting. I always got two questions about Mark Cuban. One was, what is he like? And the other one was, what is he like to work for? And so the what is he like question, I always borrow the answer of that one from Steve Nash, who told David Letterman, because he got the same question from Letterman. He told David Letterman, well, Mark Cuban has two personalities and both of them are ADHD. So
sounds
that's
like my current founder.
That is a good description of Mark Cuban. What's he like to work for? Well, anytime you work for an eccentric billionaire, it is going to be a handful. But I would rather work for a passionate, pain in the rear end than a complacent nice guy.
Hey, look at that,
There you
Blake.
go. Because
You're welcome.
That passionate guy is going to take you places and allow you to do things you never would have otherwise been able to do.
You're welcome, Blake.
Look, I love Mark Cuban because my hair pills that I take because I'm trying to, not lose my hair. They used to be $250 a year, and his Cost Plus Drugs company, I get them for $50. That is a 400% reduction, 80% reduction. I don't know how the numbers work, but it's $200 saved. So if he can just do that to all of the world, that'd be great.
Yeah. And also what I heard from Dave's whole thing about Mark Cuban is that basically we and Letterman are the same thing.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dave, getting back to production.
You made me speechless. By the way, Blake, I'm not in the business of predicting things. So I'm going to stay silent on whether Mark Cuban is going to run for president or not. So
It's just if he can do that with pharmaceuticals, I'm like, can you do this with everything? Can you cut everything by 80%? I'll vote for that.
Yep.
I'll vote for that.
I'm still holding out for Tom Hanks to play Abraham Lincoln as America's president in real life.
20 years ago, Toby, I'd have said that was preposterous, but not anymore.
All right, Dave, getting back to production-related questions. We'll get back to Mark Cuban, I'm sure, because we're like, squirrels on this podcast.
Speak for yourself, Toby. I'm a hippopotamus.
Talk to us about AI as it relates to video production. Were you seeing any elements of that in the sports world when you were still there? And are you guys utilizing, that's a hard word, any at Cottonwood Creek?
Okay, so we were not utilizing it in the sports world as of the time that I left there 3 years ago. It was a thing, but it wasn't really making its way into our workflow. We are starting to dip our toe in the water with it here at Cottonwood Creek. And some of these questions actually may be better asked to Will Chapman, because he's the one who's like the mad scientist in that world.
Oh, we did.
I'm kind of an old guy, and Will Chapman is our online minister, by the way, here at the church. And he is the one who started our media ministry back in 2003. And he was a one-man band for a long time, had to spin all the plates, do all the things. And I tried to be one of his biggest encouragers back in the day when I was a trustee and a deacon at the church instead of what I am now. And now that I'm in this role, it's really been a pleasure to work side by side with him. But, right now we're really not utilizing AI in production in a way that would be visible to people per se. We're using AI more in research, understanding our congregation, understanding the questions that are out there, coming up with topics really for some of the documentaries that we're making based on some of the things that AI tells us that our congregation is concerned about. So honestly, at this point, I'm using AI more as like being an old guy, I'm using it more like Google than I am anything else. But I think it's going to advance to the point to where it does start to make its way into, what we're doing with some sound, what we're doing with some video. The thing that concerns me about AI is I'm one of those old guys that gets very leery of anything artificial replacing the human element. Now, I understand AI will only do what a human tells it to do. But then it can run amok from there. So I don't know. There's a balance here that honestly I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around.
I've seen Terminator. I don't believe this to be true.
And I was thinking, Dave, as you were talking in the multi-view behind you, somebody's walking across stage, and then they were standing there, like, kind of doing some hand motions. And I thought, like, how funny that we're talking to you through a screen and then seeing somebody else behind you on a different screen in a different room. Like, it's just, through the rabbit hole.
I'm just glad they didn't give us any friendly gestures.
I know. Or, start misbehaving.
Toby, goodness gracious. Keep on topic. Keep on track.
I can push a button on the switcher behind me and change all of that if we need to. So,
it's entertaining me, Dave.
Just tell me if anything gets inappropriate, and then I'll try to make that change for you.
I'm just glad it wasn't like a dude in a purge mask with a bat or something and be like, Dave, you gotta run.
They're in the room.
I hope that mic is truly a stick of dynamite.
I'm just glad it wasn't Will Chapman walking across the stage of the
Oh, the Lord edited you.
That was so funny.
It literally,
Yeah, Zoom pooped out on you right when you said you were glad it wasn't Will Chapman.
Okay. So I'm glad it wasn't Will Chapman.
You just said
walking across the stage with his shirt off.
Does that happen often? I mean, it is Dallas. It's hot.
It is Dallas. It's hot. So
perfect.
I think he just outed Will. Okay.
So Dave, I'm going to make an assumption that, working for a eccentric billionaire, budgets are one way, and then you get into a church, you're still working for somebody eccentric. Pastors have to be eccentric.
For sure.
Most of them aren't billionaires, but you got a different budget level, and then you guys are still a very large church with a lot of technology, shrink it down to other churches that don't have much budget. How do you think about still putting out a great product with video production when budgets are very limited?
So there's really three things that I think are key essential elements to successfully doing that, because sometimes more resources just isn't going to be possible, at least in the near term, for a lot of churches. But all that does is challenge the leader to basically come up with ways to still do what they're doing and do it well. Do it good. And so the three things that I really focus on when I'm talking to churches about this, in fact, I led a session on this at CFX and Capture conference last week. And basically, number one is planning. You have to plan even harder when you have the fewer resources, like how are we going to use the limited resources that we have in a way that makes the most of it? In other words, how can I take my 3 cameras and make it look like there's 5 cameras in the room? How can I do all of these things to, maximize what I do have? And the other element of that is knowing your strength. Knowing the strengths. And when you talk about volunteers, know the strengths of your crew and your volunteers. I've got a couple of camera operators on our volunteer team that are fantastic. In fact, it's a father-daughter team, and they like to work together. So we usually have both of them together. And the daughter is she's been with us working since she was 13 years old. She's 16 now. And they're great. And so we'll have a camera meeting. Usually don't have to tell them a whole lot, but they ask a lot of questions. That's part of what makes them good. And they said, well, what do you want here? You gave me some instruction here, but let me ask a follow-up question on it. Do you want that zoom to be, and then they'll show me, do you want it to be this slow? Or do you want it to be this slow? And they'll show me the 2 examples or whatever. So, you've got this level of volunteer that is up here, and then you've got a level of volunteer that maybe they struggle and they're not quite as good. So when I have that more C-level volunteer as opposed to the A-level volunteer, I talk to them a little bit more. I have to talk to them a little bit more because they don't get the nuances of what we're doing. So, whereas the A-level volunteer does. And so I don't even have to tell the A-level, they already know what to do in most cases. The C-level volunteer, I try to rehearse things with them ahead of time, talk them through every element that I want, and then know, look, this person is not as skilled as following the pastor on camera, for instance. So instead of having them shoot chest up, I'm going to have them shoot waist up, so they have less movement that they have to do. Making adjustments based on the strength of your crew is I think, a key to still making your presentation a good presentation based on that situation. But, know your strengths. And then the third thing really is to keep it simple. If you've got limited resources, then just keep it simple. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Do little subtle things with zoom ins and zoom outs on your cameras. But just try to make your goal not to have a donut with sprinkles. Just make your goal to have a really good, tasty glazed donut. I have to bring all the analogies down to food and donuts in particular.
Helps Blake to understand what you're talking about.
Blake hungry.
Of course.
Yeah, he's suddenly interested again.
Blake very hungry.
But I hope that made sense. But yeah, it's there's ways that you can do that even with limited resources, and sometimes it's just moving the resources around and really thinking through how you're going to do the presentation that maximizes the limited resources that you do have, and that's where planning comes in.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to talk about the next generation, Gen Z and Alpha. Are we having to start all over again with the alphabet, Blake?
What is it? You weren't in the room. Gen Beta, the first person in Gen Beta is born this year. This is the start of the next one.
Okay.
I'm already old because I'm like, I literally told our Gen Z employee the other day, she said, like, Gen Z likes this. And I said, I don't care about Gen Z yet. I was like, they're not old enough to be buying stuff.
But thankfully, Dave, we believe you care about Gen Z and Alpha. What do you feel like is some of the, the trends or the way in which we need to start reshaping production to reach the next generation?
Okay, so I don't know that we have to. The concern is trying too hard. I don't think we need to try that hard with them. Gen Z wants genuineness. They want reality. I mean, they want you to be real with them. They want you to be straightforward with them. And looking at the statistics, Gen Z is more open to Christianity than the 4 previous generations. And so there is a huge opportunity that churches have right now to appeal to Gen Z. But I think that, I'm actually working right now on, I don't even know what to call it, a seminar, a speech, a workshop or whatever, but called The Boomer's Guide to Gen Z. And I'm at the very end of the boomer generation, so I represent that side of it. But I have this passion. I've always had a passion for bringing that next generation into our business, whether it was sports broadcasting or now into church production. And I mean, like I said, we've got our 13-year-old camera operator started when she was 13. That was like the best one. We've got a 15-year-old now that's followed. And so I love it when we have these young kids coming in and we can bring them into what we're doing. But the thing that I've really come to understand with them is they're sharp and they know a phony in 2 seconds. So don't try to, get too cute or try to do things, that are, disingenuous. Just be honest with them. Just tell them the truth. And there are strategies. I mean, I don't even know what all the strategies are, but there are strategies to kind of, appeal to them in certain ways. But they are all about community. They're all about relationships. They embrace, I think, the human connection more so than their previous generation did, where everything was just on the screen. They're still on their screens. That's where they live. I'm not saying that that's not a part of it, but they're, I think, very open to finding ways to have more of that one-on-one human connection as well.
Yeah. And is there any way you're approaching video production in order to meet them differently?
I would say yes, and it's still a work in progress. It's still an experiment, but we're talking to them about, what do you guys like? What do you, and I think what we're finding is it's really not that drastically different from what we're already doing. Again, I think what they want is just to be presented with the straightforward truth, and they don't seem to get too hung up on shooting techniques or presentation techniques or anything like that. I think that for them, you've got to capture their attention fast. And again, that's nothing that's all that new. What is it? Ad agencies used to always say, with ads, you've got to get their attention in the first 5 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever it is.
3 seconds.
I mean, really, it's the
3 seconds.
It's the speed of scroll. So, I mean, you really, what is that? One miss. I mean, you got a second.
Yeah, I mean, you really do. You've got to catch their attention immediately, and so that's like the biggest thing from a technique standpoint. I think is how do we get their attention right away and very quickly, and sometimes that is in an image that's not provocative necessarily, but or profound, but just an image that they want to go, oh, wait, what's this about? Pique their curiosity, but you have to do it really quickly.
And a question I didn't have on the outline, but I want to ask, what's your thoughts on broadcast style versus cinema style in church visual production?
So I love it that the cinema style is starting to kind of make its way more and more into church production. And it's weird that I'm saying that coming from a live sports production background, because in live sports, we weren't looking at cinema techniques. Yeah. Nothing was a film style type production. Now, the closest thing to that I think we had is, we would do really tight zoom ins to the eyes of players when there was an emotional point during a timeout in the game or whatever, or showing fans in certain ways. So there's still some similarities, but anyway, getting back to it in church production, I love that the cinema style is kind of starting to make its way in, and I'm a big fan of it. Saw a thing the other day, I can't remember who was doing it, if it was Bethel Worship or who, but it was basically a very intentional handheld shot that went for 3 minutes straight on a stage, and director never changed the shot.
Yeah.
And they got they got the main singer on the stage, they got the crowd, they got the drummer, they got the guitarist, and it was just movement throughout the stage. And it was really nicely done. Now, that could have been a disaster, because if it's not well done, it's going to fall flat. But it was really well done, and whoever, and I'm told there was a young lady that was the shooter, and she knew what she was doing. She had the eye for it, and I asked the director. I said, "Hey, how many times did you practice this? How much coaching went into it?" I was really surprised at the answer. The director said, "I just asked her before if she wanted to try it, and I turned her loose."
Wow.
And that's not going to be the answer in most productions, but it was in that one. But yeah, I think anything that you can do in your church production, whether it's live or live to tape or in a documentary or whatever, is shoot in a way that evokes emotion. And that's what that does.
Blake, throw him a disaster. Come on,
Toby. That transition was a disaster, Toby. You say it every time. You go, "This is the worst disaster I've ever seen." I see it. I'm just like, wow.
I want you to practice your Mark Cuban. It'd be more hyper, that's for sure.
I don't think I can do it. He kind of he speaks so hard and fast. His voice almost sounds strained, and it would hurt my vocal box. I used to watch Shark Tank religiously, every single episode. So very familiar with him.
The Mark Cuban impersonations, the best ones, are more visual than they are auditory.
Yeah.
The thing I remember always the most in Shark Tank is he'd lean forward. He'd just be like, right. He would be talking. Right. Is right.
Right.
Now, Dave, let's get it right with the disaster story. So tell us a moment when everything went wrong in production, how you handled it, maybe how you talked to leadership about it, maybe how you talked to Mark Cuban about it afterwards, and what you did to save the day when you were on.
All right. So I've had so many of these stories. It actually happened this last weekend. So we had Dave and Ashley Willis, who do marriage conferences. So they run our program for our regular Saturday night service and our 3 Sunday services. After the Saturday night service, they did a separate session that was adults only. And it was basically, about sexual aspects of marriage, of a biblical marriage.
Mm-hmm. I'm still waiting to get to that.
So they had put up they had put up a QR code to get a free ebook on their book that was, I don't even remember the title of the book, but it was the, 9 aspects of biblical sex in marriage or whatever. I don't remember how it was titled. So all of that happened kind of on the fly. Well, the next day on Sunday, completely different. Our graphics coordinator was not there on Saturday. She was here on Sunday, and they had given her all of the materials to put in for their 3 talks on Sunday that didn't have anything to do with that. The talks on Sunday were more just about, family relationships and family communication. So we got through with the first service. During the first service, they said, I think we got this QR code, and then we didn't have it. And then they're like, oh, wait, I don't think we actually gave them the QR code, blah, blah, blah. So at the end of the service, our graphics coordinator goes, oh, you know what? I think I remember they gave our guy on Saturday night a QR code. So we can work it in for the next service. So had our stage manager tell him, hey, we'll have that QR code for the next service. Now, we didn't know they had 2 QR codes. They had one for going. 2 different books. And you know exactly where this is going. So in the 10:15 service, the QR code that ends up going up there is for their free book on sex.
Oh, boy.
And
jackpot.
All ages were in there to click on the QR code and get their free book. So I don't know. There may be a 12-year-old out there somewhere reading.
He's going to be very well prepared.
I was going to say five young boys got saved that day. Yeah.
Like, so anyway, that was the thing that definitely that happened this weekend. Okay, did you find that?
Dave, I found the other one. I'm trying to say a way to prompt you without revealing it. Basically, people being on camera and not knowing they were going to be on camera.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so we do cutaways of our crowd, our congregation during the sermon, and we usually will, we find people. We're looking for people, and we don't have this problem much because we've had really big crowds recently. We've tried to stay away from empty seats and stuff like that. So a lot of times it's hard to find a good cutaway, but we'll hone in on someone, and this is what they're doing, and then they're just into the sermon. And the moment you take their camera, they'll like stretch, or they'll take a drink, or they'll pick their nose or whatever. And so that is one of those things that seems to happen to me when I'm directing more often than any of the other directors. So
you literally,
I don't know if I have an ill sense of timing or what, but the one that I remember was there was a guy who was so into the sermon, and the moment I took his camera, he reached all the way up like this to stretch, and it looked like he kissed his bicep. I don't know, but it was interesting.
And what's funny is this whole podcast, Blake always knows the camera's on him, but it never stops you from doing.
Never stops him. Yeah,
you do.
See, it used to be people had some shame. You wouldn't want to get caught kissing your bicep on camera.
Did you just call it a bicep?
Also, Toby, what I thought? I should start having Anna clip these funny words we do, and at the end of the year Christmas party, it should be Toby and Blake suck, and it's just all of us rapid succession saying the words badly.
You know, there's no T in bicep though, right?
I'd have to have a bicep to know it.
Great,
Dave. All this to say, hand on the Bible. Yesterday, you caught someone licking their bicep on accident. I was in the woods taking a walk right before church, and there is straight up just this girl standing on a table twerking as her boyfriend films it for, I guess, TikTok. She's intentionally twerking for the camera. Like, we have no shame as a society.
No. Yeah.
We really don't.
Jeremy just goes, the internet is a weird place.
Yes, it is.
It is. It's an alternate universe. It's if you're a Seinfeld fan, you know this term. It's a bizarro world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Blake does not know that term, but it's okay. Bizarro Blake somewhere exists out there that knows pop culture.
I hope he never comes back. I got to keep his spot. Dave, to handle this bizarro world, we need some good advice. So hit us with a tech takeaway that would, be good for a room full of tech directors to hear. Maybe it's encouraging. Maybe it's relational, gear-wise.
Sure.
Whatever you got in the bag.
So here's what I'll say, and we tell this to our volunteers, our contractors and staff alike, that when we come in on Sunday morning, what we're doing is our act of worship. And so we're not just here doing, something that's very technical, which we are, but it's also an act of worship for us. And one of the things that we always try to make a point of doing and is praying, 10 minutes before the service starts. Brian Blackmore of Church Production Magazine wrote an article a few years back called Mary, Martha, and the 15 minutes before the service starts. That 15 minutes before the service starts, sometimes your hair's on fire and you've got all of these things that you're trying to take care of and you're trying to do. And that's where your mind is. And so it's much like the story of Mary and Martha in the Bible. And Martha was doing all the preparations for the meal when Jesus was the guest of honor. And she gets very perturbed at her sister Mary for just sitting at Jesus' feet and worshiping him instead of helping her in the kitchen. And, we all know that the story is basically to say that Mary had her priorities in the right place and Martha did not. And for us, that time of prayer in the morning is just for us to kind of focus and sit at the feet of Jesus and really put our mindset there so that we're prepared for this to be an act of worship, not just some technical exercise.
I like that. That's a great book title. Also, Toby, we messed up. We never asked him about his 8 Emmy wins that Will told us to tease him
I
about.
thought it was 9. So, yeah, you need to clarify. How many Emmys do you have,
and were they for broadcasting?
So, yes, I do have 9 Emmys. They were all for broadcasting. That's what Emmys are. You pretty much have to have them on some type of television broadcast in order to win an Emmy, but they were all from the sports world. Not all of them were live television, though. I think the one that I'm most proud of was the whole show was an interview, basically, but it was kind of a little documentary that we did called The Defining Moments of Dirk. And it was basically all of Dirk Nowitzki's greatest moments in his career in his own words. He's watching them happen. We put a screen in front of him. We're letting him watch it happen. All of this is playing into the visuals in the interview. And we're letting him describe what's going through his mind. Sometimes he would tell a story about, something that had happened earlier that day and then, how it relates to leading up to that moment. So, we had those, and I don't even remember how many defining moments we came up with, but it was basically a snapshot in an hour and a half of his career.
Mm. Did they send you a physical Emmy, or do they just say you won one?
They send you a physical Emmy. Yes.
Dave, for your podcast art for this episode, I need to get a photo of you holding one of the Emmys. All right, you should send it to us. That would be a killer, killer podcast art.
I can do that.
Perfect. Well,
I don't have a picture of me with all 9 of them, but I can get. I think I can find one of me at one of the ceremonies. So
that's fine. Just so we got at least one. I'm going to title this probably 9-time Emmy winner, Dave the Edge legend.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, chattel.
Will likes to embarrass me with those Emmy stories. He never introduces me to anybody without throwing all of that in there. So,
Dave, I think you should have every single one of them on your desk when you're working at church, personally.
Well, here's the thing. I don't bring them up here. They're in a safe space at home, but no, they're not tucked away in a box either. Someone said, "Oh, you probably got them sitting in a box somewhere," and I'm like, "Nope, they're on display, but they're in a safe place." The story Will loves to tell about this is during COVID, they decided, okay, this is a good time to have our offices painted. So they asked us to go in and get anything off of our shelves and walls, anything that was important. And, we were working from home anyway. So I thought, well, I'm going to bring a bunch of stuff home anyway. So I brought, at that time, I think it was, we were at about 5 Emmys or something like that. So anyway, I brought the boxes home. There's certain boxes that they go in that the Emmys fit down in. So folded them all up, got them all set, brought them home. And it's interesting, they're gold boxes, so they stand out a little bit. So I had these 5 gold boxes sitting on our kitchen table. And my wife walks in and she looks and she goes, "What are these?" And she opens one of them and her eyes got as big as golf balls. So I realized that I'd never told her. She didn't know that I had won an Emmy, much less 5 at the time. So,
Dave, you're crazy.
And she goes, "Dave Evans." You did not tell me. So anyway, I got in a little trouble there.
Yeah, you need to scan that QR code, Dave, and learn how to properly communicate with your wife.
I know. See, this is not helping me for, the seminar I'm trying to write about marriage,
There you go.
Dave, God must have just made him the most humble man on earth. Doesn't brag about 5 Emmys. I mean, honestly, if he's actually a boomer, to have that head of hair, I mean, my goodness. I take extensive hair products, and I don't have hair is that good. Well, Dave, thank you for joining us, man. We know you have to get back to polishing your Emmys, but we appreciate you taking a pause to join us for this episode.
Thank you guys for having me. It's my pleasure.
And now it's time for a Church Tech Confessional, where church production people confess the worst thing they've ever done in church production. Here's one now.
One time I was working at the camp part-time in addition to working at the church I was at. And this camp was notorious for having lots of bouts of food poisoning due to bad cooks. So I had lunch, and then I was going back to my church, getting ready for stage turn. In the middle of stage turn, I had a bout of what didn't feel good in my stomach. So I couldn't make it to the regular bathroom, ended up in the family bathroom, threw up absolutely everywhere, including like the trash can for the paper towels, the toilet, the walls, literally everything. My boss comes back and said, I don't care how bad it is, we need you on stage right now for rehearsal. And so I did. Well, it gets worse. My girlfriend at the time was roommates with one of the maintenance staff. And, person on maintenance staff came home that night and was telling my girlfriend about how she had to clean up vomit everywhere in the bathroom. And it was the most disgusting thing she's ever seen. To this day, she still doesn't know that was me. So if you're listening, and I doubt you are, I'm sorry.
Hey, do you have your own Church Tech Confessional that's, 45 seconds to 2 minutes? Send it to blake@churchgear.com, and you might just hear it on the podcast.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
All right, Blake, so I'm thinking of the cringiest moment of that episode for you, just realizing that you actually work for, not an eccentric billionaire, but an eccentric thousandaire.
I've never heard that term before.
Yeah.
Toby, I think that you should peel off some of them thousands and pay people to share this episode with people.
Totally. I will happily give $1,000 bill to anybody who shares this episode.
That is not legally binding in the slightest because Toby is a cheap bleep and would never...
And also, there's no $1,000 bills, Blake. It was actually a thing for a short bit, but very quickly they came out of circulation. There are no $1,000 bills.
So Toby is going to commit currency fraud and print you $1,000 bill.
Yeah, but if you do actually have a real $1,000 bill from that one moment in time where they were a real thing in U.S. currency, you should share that along with this episode.